So inevitably, at some point in your career as a designer, you're going to want to be able to show your clients how your design is going to be applied in the real world. One of the ways we do this is with mock-ups, and in this demonstration, we're going to show how to use the warp tool and also smart objects to accomplish this. Here we have a vitamin bottle, and what I want to do is I want to be able to apply my design, in this case it's just going to be a generic label, to this label right here. Okay, I want it to look realistic. So first thing I want to do is I want to go ahead and open up this label, vitamin label. So I want to be able to apply this to the vitamin label. What I'm going to do first is just drag and drop this into this layer here. You'll notice that it's pretty big, so we want to size it down correctly. So I want to get the height of it to match. Roughly about the same size as the original, okay? Now, what you'll notice right off the bat is that there's this original label, there's a curve here because it is a round cylindrical object. Hence, this is not going to be a straight line. If this is going to look realistic, we're going to need to kind of follow this label down here and use that as kind of a template. So to do that, we size it to roughly the size of the other one. And what I want to do is first I want to create a background copy just so that we are working non-destructively and we have access to the original if we need it. I'm going to turn off the visibility for that and come back here to the label. And this one I'm going to save the original also. So what I want to do is just create a copy, but I don't want the whole label. I just want the front of the label. Okay, you'll notice that what I'm selecting here is bigger than the bottle itself, and reason being is when I go ahead and when I distort this to wrap it around the bottle, there's going to be some extra label needed to create that. So I'm going to select, make a selection here, Command J to float that selection, and then I'll turn off the original layer. And so from here, we know that we can use transform, right, to get it kind of in the ballpark. We need to hold down Shift if we want to distort the perspective a little bit. Something like that, perhaps. Looks pretty good. However, we don't have, it's not really wrapped around the bottle. So how we do that is by using the warp tool. And that's this right here. If you click on this, you'll notice here in the tool options, you have warp and it defaults to custom. Custom is good if you have an irregular kind of shape, but because we know that this is cylindrical, we can use some of the presets here. So arc is one of the presets. If we click on arc, you'll notice that it does a pretty extreme job of that. We don't want it arced on both sides. If we go back to what we had before, you can see that there's more of a curvature on the bottom than there is on the top. The top is almost straight, and reason being is because our eye level, we're just slightly above the bottle itself. The perspective is just slightly above. That's why this is more of a curvature than this right here, okay? So first thing we want to do is to create this arc on the bottom here. So to do that, we would do a transform, and we go into our warp tool here, and then select arc lower. And you'll notice it puts a pretty serious bend in there. We don't need something that extreme. So we're going to adjust it to where it follows the label underneath. And to enable me to see this a little better, I'm going to turn down the opacity so I can see both. Okay. That looks pretty good. Maybe put a little bit more of a bend in there. There we go. Now it's starting to take shape. Now with this tool, I can come back in here and use transform to shrink it down. And in order for me to get this to fit, to distort it, I'm holding down Shift, so it allows me to move the sides in like this. Okay. There is some distortion happening here, but that's distortion that would happen in the real world, right? Because remember, it's wrapping around this cylindrical object. So once I'm good with the bottom, drag that out just a little bit. I'm going to hold down Shift. Okay. And that looks pretty good. Once I'm done with the bottom, I'll go ahead and apply the changes, and now we'll do the same thing with the top. So I do a transform again, I come here to the warp, and this time we're going to arc the upper. I'm going to reduce the bend a little bit. Again, I want to use this background as a template, this background label. Looks pretty good in terms of the bend. So I'm going to do a Command T to transform it. I'm holding down Shift so that it aligns with the top there. Okay, looks good. Last thing I want to do is just some minor adjustments. I'll go back to Command T again, and this time I'm going to go to Custom because I want to be able to manipulate these anchor points for just really fine adjustment. So in this mode, in this custom mode, I can move the anchor points and I can also move the lines. So for example, here I'm grabbing the line. Here I'm grabbing an anchor point, another anchor point. Because I do that, this whole thing shifts a little bit, but I can grab this line and bring it back in. Okay, now it is perfectly aligned. I click to accept my changes. I go back to opacity. Looks pretty good. Okay, last thing we want to do here, just to add some lighting effects, okay? We can see here in the way that this is lit, there's looks like some bounce boards here. There's some light coming in from the side. I just want to give it a little bit of depth because it looks pretty flat right now. Even though the curvature is correct, the lighting is definitely off. So what I'll do here is I will create a little shadow layer here. I'm going to do this on a separate layer. We can name this lighting. And then we'll fill this in with black and do the same. We'll copy this layer over and do the same on the other side. And I'm lining it up with the reflection here. Okay, looks pretty good. Okay, so I'll go ahead and deselect, and then from there I'll change the mode to something like darken, and then reduce the opacity down just a little bit. From here I can add a Gaussian blur. Maybe a little bit more. Something like that maybe. Lower the opacity down just a little bit. And then I want to create a mask so that I'm not, so this effect is only impacting the label itself, right? Okay, here's the before and after with the lighting effect. Before and after. So we know that within Photoshop, we're able to take a photograph or a design and map it onto another object. But what happens if we need to change that design later on? Well, we'd have to run through all of those steps all over again. That is, unless we use smart objects. So in this next example, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to take this label here and we're going to apply it to this wine bottle. But instead, first we're going to convert this into a smart object. And I'll explain why this is important later. It's now converted to a smart object. I do that by right-clicking, convert to smart object. And I know it's a smart object because of this icon here. So now I can drag and drop this layer over. And I will do what I did before. I'll do transform, Apple T or Control or Command T. And I will move this into the layer here, and I'm going to use this label mask layer, this red, as a template here, as a reference point. And I'm holding down Shift so I can distort this. And I just want it to kind of cover over the area. Now I can go into my warp tool, and I want this to follow the curvature of the bottle, so I'm going to use an arch. This is quite a bit of an arc here, so I'm going to lower this bend down a little bit. And what I'm trying to do is get it aligned with the curvature of the label underneath. That looks pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and click apply. That's pretty close. Now the last step that I do here is I will do another transform and go back into the warp tool, and this time I'm going to do custom. This will allow me to do a bit more precise adjustments here. Now with the custom, same as before, I can move these anchor points to where I need them to go. I can also move the lines. I can also move the spaces in between if I need to. On the end here we have a Bezier curve adjustment handle, and this adjusts the intensity of the curve. And I'm holding down Command to just move the individual points. That looks pretty good. Now, as I said before, I can move the lines if I need to. I can move the intersections if I need to. I can also move the spaces if I need to. Okay? But this looks pretty good the way it is right now. So what I'll do is I'll click apply, and then I will turn off this label mask layer. I'll just go ahead and get rid of it. And then I'll drag this down to where the label mask layer was before so that it applies the lighting effects. Make one little minor adjustment here, and it looks pretty good. Okay, so now I've done all this work, and lo and behold, the client says, we need to change the name of the wine. So that means I need to come back in here and change the design. Thankfully, I created this as a smart object, which means that it's sort of a file within a file. So when I double click on this, it opens up as if it's its own individual file. I know it's a smart object because of this .psb. This does not create a separate file. This is a file within a file. It lives right now within this wine bottle PSD file. So for me to come back in here and change the name, not a problem. It's called Lion City right now. Lion City Wine, kind of a strange name. So we'll come back in and we'll just change this to, I don't know, make something up. Tiger City. Click OK. I'm going to come back in here and create a new layer and just fill that with white. And there we go. All right, so I've applied my changes. Once I X out, this is going to ask me if I want to save this layer. I'm going to click yes, and it will automatically update. Huge advantage there, okay? You always, 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 as a best practice, want to use smart objects for this very reason. I like everything about this. I would like to move this slightly over, and I can do that again within the smart layer. I'll come back in here, double click it. I'll select the crop tool, and I'm just going to crop this in just a little bit. I click OK to apply it. Yes, I'll save it, and now it's moved the label over just a little bit. All right. Again, that's using the warp tool with smart objects to be able to apply a design or photograph to map it to an object.